Hello people, today I'm going to be doing a ranking of all 10 Best Picture nominees for the 2023 Oscars. Before I get into this video, yes, I'm going to state the obvious. My Nope poster ripped in half. So, my heart's a little broken. At first I was like, dang, I should probably throw it away. But then I looked at it and I was like, that rip goes right through his eye. And what happens is when they look up in the movie, stuff, like what happened with his father at the beginning, the coin went through his eye. And I was like, that's actually pretty cool that it ripped that way. And how did it rip? I'll explain. My curtains are right here, and I put a coat hanger on the curtain with a suit on it, and then it slid off, and then the coat hanger was curved like this. It slid off and went down and tore it in half. Horrible luck. But that's the story, so now you guys know. Okay, let's get into ranking these Best Picture nominees. This is one of those years where I genuinely don't dislike any of these nominees. There's one or two I don't think maybe deserves to be nominated, but I don't dislike any of these films. I want to get that right out of the way, make that very clear. I don't think a single one of these movies are bad. I think these are all decent, at least decent films. I don't think this is a bad Best Picture lineup at all. I think this is a pretty good lineup overall. And let's get right into it. Coming in at number 10 is Elvis. I like this movie. I really do. I think Austin Butler's great in it. I think it was enjoyable. I really think it embodied what Elvis was, and I think Baz Luhrmann, even though he has his choices that make this film not the best, he was still a good pick to direct an Elvis film, just because I think he really brings that energy that you would probably want out of something like this. The problem is that this movie is just way too long. It has too much going on, and the second half just could have been trimmed down a lot. Of course, Austin Butler was really, really good in the movie as Elvis, and I really respect his performance. Yes, you can talk about the voice all you want, but I really don't care about, what he does as a person. I'm just talking about the performance. But all I know, he's really, really good in the movie, and there's many scenes, particularly at the end when it switches over from him to actual Elvis, you can almost not notice that it happened. It's that real. I think if you watch my predictions video, I think this will win makeup as well, and I think this is going to win costumes and actor along with it. Not a bad movie whatsoever. It's just a little too long. The editing is not really my thing. The Baz Luhrmann in my faceness isn't my favorite, but it was still a pretty good Elvis film. Coming in at number 9 is Triangle of Sadness. When I watched this movie for the first time, this is there's a couple of movies on here I haven't reviewed. Triangle of Sadness, I was loving it, and then I wasn't loving it, and then I was loving it again, and I wasn't loving it. It was kind of like on and off, but I just really respected it as a film because it had a lot going on. It had a lot it wanted to say. Not all of it stuck the landing, but it was really, really ambitious. I haven't seen a single movie quite like this film because, it has a three-act structure that is really strange because a good chunk of this movie, the opening, is a scene of a date and it going horribly wrong. And it's really, really good. And then it slowly goes to the second act where it's mostly on a boat. And it's really, really entertaining. It has some interesting scenes. And then the last act is on an island and you're kind of like, okay. And then at first you're not really sure where it's going. And then it kind of holds you all the way to the last scene, and then you're like, okay, I get it. Yes, this movie could have been shorter. I don't think it warranted its runtime. I thought the cast was really, really good. I don't think all of its messaging quite landed, and some of its messaging is a little familiar compared to what we've seen in other films this year. But overall, quite a solid film that I don't think was... Coming in at number 8 is The Banshees of Inisherin. This was a good movie. Not my thing, though. This is probably the movie I feel most disconnected from, particularly when this movie was on a high after Golden Globes. I was like, I don't get it. I mean, I understand why people love it, but for me, it wasn't particularly riveting. Like, I know, like, people are like, oh, it's a Martin McDonagh movie, and so, like, people accuse me of, like, not liking the slow pace. But at the same time, you're about to find out from this list that I really liked Tar. That's, dare I say, even slower than this film. So I just didn't find myself particularly invested in these characters, nor did I find myself particularly liking them either. I found them kind of frustrating the whole time, and I get that it's trying to make commentary, but when I'm not latching onto your characters, not really caring about what they're doing, it just kind of had me, kind of like, okay, whatever. It's a very, very well made movie. It's a beautifully shot movie. And even though the characters are kind of frustrating to me, wonderfully acted. Brendan Gleeson is great. Colin Farrell is great. Barry Keoghan is great. Gary Condon's great. The whole entire cast is just phenomenal. And even though these characters are kind of frustrating, I do think it's a very well written film. Of course, this is nominated for Best Screenplay, and I think it's a very deserved nomination. Yeah, that's my thoughts on the Banshees of Inisherin. It's just, I know a lot of that was spent on me explaining why I don't get the love for this one, but it's still a pretty good movie. Coming in at number 7 is Women Talking. This is one of those movies I thought would be more like the Banshees of Inisherin, like kind of something I just wouldn't connect to. I was very moved by this film. I thought this was a very touching film that didn't overstay its welcome. It had a very short runtime, and it was paced perfectly. It said what it wanted to say. It said it well. The performances are all top-notch, very, very well-acted film. It had a phenomenal score by Hildur, can't say her last name, but she's the person who did Joker and as well as Tar, if you want to call that a score. Very, very emotionally impactful film. Didn't overstay its welcome. I didn't love the way the movie looked, though. I think there's some CGI shots that didn't particularly look good, and the look of the movie in general wasn't the best. Forgive my cat meowing. Coming in at number 6 is The Fablemans. This is the Steven Spielberg film about his life. This is a very, very good film. The only reason why this isn't higher than the others is just because I like them more. This is, like I said, this is a fantastic lineup this year. Women Talking Up are all 4.5-star films. So The Fablemans, I don't have a lot of wrongs to say about it, even though it's in the bottom half of this list. There's some times where it comes off as a little sappy. I do think Michelle Williams is good in the movie, but I don't think the love is 1000% warranted. There's some moments where she kind of comes off as a little overdone. Maybe that's the way the character is, and maybe that's what Spielberg was kind of going for. But to me, it just didn't necessarily work all the time. I thought the rest of the cast was great. I think Gary LaBelle was fantastic in this movie and should have gotten so much more attention this award season, besides getting young actor at some places, because he was really, really good. I mean, Spielberg, of course, did a very good job making this film. Is very well directed and really understands the eyes of filmmakers and what young filmmakers want to say, and expresses it in this film very, very well to talk to little people like me all over the world that want to make movies and say, hey, buddy. Coming in at number 5 is All Quiet on the Western Front. Yeah, people have been complaining, oh, it's so familiar, oh, we've seen this movie before, but it's a really well done movie. You have to admit that. It's a very, very enthralling film that gripped me from beginning to end. It's a long movie, but it doesn't feel too long. Yes, some of the characters are cliches, but at the same time, that's my opinion of 1917 that people didn't have. When I saw All Quiet on the Western Front, I thought to myself, this is like what I thought 1917 was going to be, of course, without the one take. And then, because when 1917 came out, I was like, yeah, it was good, but a little familiar. And so it's kind of vice versa now, that I think this movie is really great, and then people say it's too familiar. So, again, I will admit that it's very familiar, but I think it's just so successful in what it's doing. It's just hard to not really say it's familiar, because there's so many memorable moments in this film, and so many, like, really well done themes that I think really sell home the message. And I think there are definitely some original stuff here, particularly with the lead characters and how dumb they are going into this war, thinking it's just going to be like playing Call of Duty. Obviously Call of Duty didn't exist back then, but you know what I'm saying. Coming in at number 4 is Avatar: The Way of Water. James Cameron, big action spectacle with a lot of really, really good looking CGI, a complete immersion, amazing looking 3D. I mean, and it's nominated for Best Picture. That's a gift right there. This is a very, very good film, and I suspect I'll like it more upon a rewatch. I've only seen this once. It was a very, very overwhelming experience, and I am just dying to see it again, because it was really good. I mean, the action was top-notch. The characters I thought were very, very good. People are going to complain about the characters in these films up until this series is done. No matter how good the characterization gets, people will complain, because that's the complaint about Avatar, because that's the narrative, and I think the characters aren't cliche here. I think, I remember specifically the characters, their arcs, what they went through. I'm horrible with names, so I can't even tell you the names, but I can't tell you the names of the characters in Triangle of Sadness, Women Talking, the Banshees of Inisherin or like All Quiet on the Western Front. It's just this was a really, really like engaging, fun, emotional, riveting film that I enjoyed watching all 3 hours of. I didn't feel a runtime, and it was very, very good. Coming in at number three is Tar. Speaking of enthralling, I thought this movie was so gripping. I loved this movie so much. Last year I gave 4 movies 5 stars, and 3 of those were nominated for Best Picture, and so I'm very, very happy. The one that wasn't was The Batman. Tar was a very, very gripping film that I haven't been able to get out of my head. You know, when I watched this for the first time, I was like, this one really will have to like stand the test of time. It depends on how much I think about it, how much I reminisce about it, and how those thoughts will change. Will I be more like, that was kind of boring, or like that was really engaging? And my opinion of it is only gone higher. Todd Field did such a good job, and I can't even begin on how good Cate Blanchett is in this movie. This is god tier performance. Acting doesn't get any better than this. Cate Blanchett understood the assignment and gave the best performance of last year, without a doubt, in Todd Field's Tar. The direction is so confident, so precise, and it fits the tone of who Lydia Tarr is as a person, which is why the collaboration between Todd Field and Cate Blanchett really, really works, because the way that Todd Field makes his movie is almost like the same way the way Cate Blanchett's Lydia Tarr kind of conducts herself. So you feel that precision. You feel like you almost are embodying her as a character. People watch this movie and think this is a real person, but it's not. It's just Cate Blanchett's that good, and it's just such a well-directed film that people will believe that. I love this movie. It's one of my favorites of last year. It's on my favorite movie of all time list, which is like 50 films that I love. Coming in at number 2 is Top Gun Maverick. This was a movie that everyone loves, and it's the one movie of last year where I think everyone just universally agrees that it's great. I haven't talked to a single person that thought this movie wasn't good. When I think about these other Best Picture nominees, every single one of them, I can think of people who don't like it, except for Top Gun Maverick. There are people, I can't think of anyone I've encountered or seen like, Top Gun Maverick wasn't good. Like, I know people who like, Tar was boring, it sucks. People who Avatar, it's overrated. All Quiet, we've seen it before. The Fablemans, and so forth. Top Gun Maverick is just action spectacle done at its best, captured in beautiful IMAX with beautiful planes, beautiful action, beautiful looks. It's a sin that this wasn't nominated for Best Cinematography, but at least it got Best Picture. It's emotional, it's heavy, it brings that emotion and applies it into its action sequences, and that's what all the best action films do. That's what all action films need to do, and this movie did it perfectly. I will never forget watching this in the theater for the first time, being on the edge of my seat, thinking what's going to happen next, and that's why you go to the movies. You can go into a lot of movies nowadays that are particularly action, and you know where it's going. You're not on the edge of your seat. You're just letting it happen because you felt like you've seen this before. Top Gun Maverick, yes, it feels like you've seen it before, but it has a whole new layer of emotion and depth and realism to it that puts you on the edge of your seat, and that's why you go to the movies. Coming in at number 1, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Yeah, the hit. I mean, it's my favorite movie of last year, so it's kind of obvious that this was. And Top Gun was my second favorite movie of last year. So if you follow my channel, these top 3 were probably not a shocker to you whatsoever. But Everything, Everywhere, All at Once was the movie of last year. It's my favorite movie of last year. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen in general, and I'm just saying that as a young cinephile. But the first time I watched this movie, I was, like everyone else, very, very overwhelmed and didn't necessarily know what to think. And I remember watching this, I was like, I'm pretty sure that was great. It's just I really won't know how good it is until I see it again. And I'm never, ever going to forget watching this movie a second time. I got the 4K in the mail. My nephew wanted to watch it. I stuck it on, and it was one of the best viewings of a film I've ever had in my life. My second watch of Everything Everywhere All at Once, it had me shocked by how much better it was the second time. If it wasn't one of the best viewings I've ever had of a film, it was definitely the best second viewing I've had of a film ever. And that's not to say that I didn't like it the first time, because I still loved it the first time. I believe I gave it like a very, very high 8, but then it went from a high 8 to like a 9.5 or 9.6 or whatever I have it at. Even though this isn't like a Top Gun type of action film, this is an action film that's very like martial arts like. and it does it very, very well. It's very in your face, and it doesn't like, they're fighting in an office for most of the movie. Most of this movie takes place in this office, and they find clever ways to make these action sequences look cool, and it's fun, and it plays with the multiverse in beautiful ways. This video will be posted tomorrow, the day of the Oscars, and as of right now, it looks like this is winning Best Picture, and I am ecstatic for that. This is not a movie you would typically think would win Best Picture, but I think in 24, well, not 24 hours, in a little over 24 hours, hopefully this film will be the Best Picture winner of 2023. I'm ecstatic to see that happen. But yeah, comment down below what you guys' rankings are for the Best Picture lineup. I'm very, very curious. I think everyone's list for this is going to look a little bit different, but this is my list, and yeah. So, anyways, comment down below what you guys thought, and are you guys excited for the Oscars tomorrow? Because there's some of these categories I'm quite nervous for. So yeah. So anyways, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.